Anna, tired after a sleepless night in the emergency room, almost sped past the man with a flat tire. She didn't even immediately realize why she hit the brake. She stepped out into the chilly wind and approached the stranger, not knowing that this random decision would be the point of no return in her life. Before we get back to that, I'd love to know where you're watching this video from today, and if you like these stories, make sure you subscribe. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Anna peeled off her gloves, the faint scent of antiseptic still clinging to her skin. 14 hours. 3 codes. 1 death that stayed with her more than the others. Her feet ached, her scrubs were damp from sweat and spilled coffee, and her mind felt like it was wrapped in fog. As she stepped outside the hospital, the early morning rain greeted her like a slap in the face. Cold, relentless, and unforgiving. She climbed into her battered Toyota, rubbed her eyes, and exhaled. The city was half asleep, buildings still hidden behind curtains of rain. Streetlights blinked hazily in the downpour. Anna turned on the wipers and pulled onto the slick road, focusing only on one thing: home. A hot shower, a warm blanket, silence. That was all she needed. But halfway through the drive, just past the overpass, she spotted it, a black SUV with hazard lights blinking like a distress signal. A man knelt by a tire, soaked through, struggling. Most cars sped past, uncaring, like shadows in the storm. Anna's fingers tightened around the wheel. Her foot hovered over the gas pedal. She should keep driving. She deserved to keep driving. But she didn't. She pulled over. Rain hammered the roof of her car as she grabbed the emergency poncho from the glove compartment, a thin, crinkled sheet of plastic that barely held together. She stepped into the storm, the wind slicing through her like glass, and hurried toward the man. He didn't hear her at first, cursing under his breath as he wrestled with a stubborn lug nut. His hands were trembling, his knuckles scraped. "Need help?" she called out, her voice almost lost in the downpour. He looked up, startled, blinking rain from his eyes. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s. Sharp jawline, wet curls clinging to his forehead, expensive watch, soaked, like everything else. Yeah. I can't get the damn jack to hold. It keeps slipping." Anna didn't hesitate. She crouched beside him, ignoring the cold water soaking through her pants, and examined the jack. "You're using it wrong," she said calmly, adjusting the base under the car's frame. "See? It needs a flat point of contact." He watched her, baffled, as she worked quickly and efficiently, like she'd done it 100 times. She had older brothers, tight budgets, flat tires were nothing new. Within 10 minutes, the spare was on. Her hands were freezing, fingers numb, but the job was done. The man stood in stunned silence, then gave a small, breathless laugh. "You just showed up and fixed it. Like some kind of road angel." Anna smiled faintly. "Just a nurse with a habit of stopping for hopeless cases." He chuckled, and there was something soft in his expression. Grateful, maybe even touched. "Can I at least get your name?" he asked. But she was already walking back to her car. "Get home safe," she said over her shoulder. Then she drove off, thinking she'd never see him again. She was wrong. 3 days passed. The memory of the rainy roadside encounter faded into the noise of back-to-back shifts, understaffed floors, and a head nurse who barked like a drill sergeant. Anna barely had time to sleep, let alone reflect. She didn't know the man's name. Didn't care to. It was just something she did, like checking a pulse, cleaning a wound. Instinct. But something shifted that Friday morning. The entire hospital buzzed with tension. Whispered conversations rippled through break rooms and nurses' stations. People glanced at their phones, shook their heads. Words like ownership change, private investors, and buyout floated in the air like dust. Anna leaned on the counter, sipping cold coffee, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "What's going on?" she asked the receptionist. "They sold the hospital," the woman whispered. "To some big shot. Billionaire type. There's a staff meeting in 10. Anna rolled her eyes. Perfect. Just what we need, another rich guy who's never set foot in a trauma bay making decisions about patient care. She had no patience left for suits who thought their money gave them insight. Most came, cut costs, and left chaos behind. She wasn't going to lose sleep over this one. 10 minutes later, she stood in a packed conference room, arms crossed, surrounded by weary nurses and skeptical doctors. The murmurs died the second he walked in. Tall. Confident. Designer suit. Sharp features. Anna felt her breath catch. It was him. The man from the road. But he wasn't soaked or shivering this time. He was dry-cleaned, composed, and smiling. "Good morning," he said, stepping up to the podium. "My name is Alexander Reed. Some of you might know me from business news, some, not at all. But one of you helped me on a rainy road at 6 a.m. when no one else would stop." Silence. His eyes scanned the room. They found her. Anna's heart slammed against her ribs. "She changed my tire. Refused any thanks. Just told me to drive safe," he said, voice quiet but steady. That moment stayed with me. Because in a world where kindness is rare, she didn't hesitate. The room was dead quiet now. "And that," he added, "is why I bought this hospital. Because people like her deserve better. And I plan to make sure they get it." The moment the meeting ended, the room exploded with chatter. People turned toward Anna, wide-eyed, whispering behind hands and coffee cups. She stood frozen, her face flushed with heat, pulse thudding in her ears. She didn't move. Couldn't. Alexander, or Mr. Reed, apparently, was surrounded by department heads and administrators, all eager to shake his hand, to flatter, to smile too wide. He didn't look her way again. Not yet. Back at the nurse's station, the gossip spread like wildfire. "You know him? Did you date him? Did he follow you here? Is this a rom-com or a lawsuit?" Anna rubbed her temples. "He had a flat tire. That's it." Her friend Maya, a pediatric nurse with a sharp tongue, leaned in. "Honey, I've changed tires. No one's ever bought my hospital afterward." Anna gave her a look. "Don't start." But it was too late. Word had spread beyond the walls of the hospital. By the end of the day, local news stations were reporting on the mysterious millionaire who purchased a struggling hospital after a late-night rescue. They didn't name her, but they didn't need to. That night, she couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling of her cramped apartment, replaying everything. The rain. His face. The way he looked at her in the meeting, like he remembered every second. And underneath it all, a quiet, rising anxiety. What does he want from me now? The next morning started like any other. Cold coffee. A wrinkled pair of clean enough scrubs. Her cat yelling at her for being late with breakfast. Normal chaos. But the moment Anna walked into the hospital lobby, she knew the day wouldn't stay normal for long. He was there. Alexander Reed. Standing by the front desk, dressed less like a billionaire today, still sharp, still polished, but less boardroom and more real world. No entourage. No cameras. Just him. And he was waiting. For her. Their eyes met, and for a second everything else dropped away, the noise, the rushing patients, the tired nurses. He smiled. A soft, almost shy smile. "Hey," he said. Anna blinked, stopping a few feet away. "You're really not done with this, huh?" He chuckled. "Not even close." She sighed and crossed her arms. "Why? Why all this? The speech, the money, the dramatics?" Alexander leaned against the counter, suddenly serious. "Because you reminded me who I used to be. Before the suits, the contracts, the endless meetings. I was a kid whose mom was a nurse. A tired, heroic woman who used to come home with stories about people like you. I'd forgotten what that looked like, until you knelt in the rain and helped a stranger like it was the most natural thing in the world. Anna swallowed, heart pounding. She hated this, the attention, the weight of someone else's gratitude. "You don't owe me anything," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. "But I want to give something anyway. Not out of guilt. Out of respect." Then he handed her something small, a card, dark blue with his name embossed in silver. "If you ever need something," he said, "really need something, no red tape, no forms, no committees, you call me. For you, doors open." She stared at the card, unsure what to say. "And if I just want to return to my regular, quiet, exhausted life?" He smiled. "Then I'll respect that too. But I'll still be around. Trying to fix this place. Starting with what matters to you." And then he walked away, leaving her standing in the middle of a lobby that suddenly felt too small, too loud, and not nearly as predictable as it had been yesterday. The days that followed moved in strange rhythms. The hospital was changing, subtly, but unmistakably. Fresh paint appeared on long-neglected walls. New monitors replaced outdated machines in the ICU. A long-awaited software update finally arrived at the ER, sparing nurses the daily torture of frozen screens and glitchy charts. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. But it was fast. People started to whisper a different kind of gossip. "This guy, he's not like the others. He actually listens. He asked me what we needed in triage." Me, a nurse. Anna tried to stay detached. Focused. Professional. But the truth was, things were getting better, and fast. More staff. Cleaner halls. Less bureaucracy. And he was around. Not constantly. But enough. He showed up during late shifts, asking questions. Checking in. Learning names. Once, Anna caught him sitting with a janitor in the cafeteria, listening like the man was a CEO. It made her nervous. Uncomfortable. Because kindness that consistent didn't feel real. One evening, as she walked past the courtyard, she spotted him alone on a bench, tie loosened, eyes distant. Just a man. Not a billionaire. Not a savior. She almost walked past. Almost. But something made her stop. "Tired?" she asked, voice soft. He looked up, surprised, then smiled faintly. "Always." She sat beside him, leaving space between them. "You're doing a lot," she said after a pause. He nodded slowly. "I have the means to fix things. I just never had the reason." Anna looked at him carefully. "So I'm your reason?" His gaze met hers. "No. You reminded me of the reason." Silence settled between them, not awkward, but weighty. Something was shifting. Cracks in the surface of their carefully drawn lines. A warmth that wasn't there before. And for the first time, Anna didn't pull away from it. Rain came again that night, not violent like before, but steady, patient, like a reminder. Anna watched it trickle down her window as she curled up on her couch, cup of tea in her hands, cat asleep at her feet. Her shift had ended hours ago, but her mind was still at the hospital. Still in the courtyard. Still with him. She hated this feeling. The slow, quiet pull of something unfamiliar. Vulnerability had never been her comfort zone. So when her phone buzzed with an unknown number, her first instinct was to ignore it. But something made her pick up. "Anna?" His voice was low, unsure. "It's Alexander." She hesitated. "You got my number." "I did. Through HR. I hope that's okay." I'm not calling about work. I was wondering if you'd want to have dinner sometime. No boardrooms. No hospital talk. Just." She exhaled sharply, cutting him off. "You don't have to do this." "Do what?" "Make me feel seen. Or special. Or Whatever this is. I helped you with a tire. That doesn't mean I belong in your world. There was a pause on the other end. Not offended. Just quiet. That night, he said finally, I wasn't coming back from a meeting. I was leaving my lawyer's office. I just signed off on selling the last part of my company. I was done. Burned out. I didn't know what the hell I was doing with my life. And then you stopped. You didn't know me. You didn't want anything. You just helped. Anna's grip on the mug tightened. I'm not trying to pull you into my world, he said softly. I'm just hoping you'll let me step into yours. She closed her eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, one dinner. He exhaled, and she could hear the smile in his voice. One dinner. The restaurant was quiet, tucked into a corner of the city she rarely visited. Dim lighting. Soft jazz. Nothing flashy, but intentional, like he'd gone out of his way to make it feel comfortable, not overwhelming. No paparazzi. No board members. Just a table by the window and 2 glasses of red wine breathing in the candlelight. Anna had worn a simple dress. No makeup, hair barely tamed, and yet he looked at her like she'd walked straight out of a memory he never wanted to forget. You clean up well, she teased, sipping her wine. I was about to say the same, he replied, smile easy, eyes warm. Though I did kind of like the drown rat version of you, too. She laughed, the real kind, not the polite one she'd perfected for doctors and hospital administrators. They talked for hours. About things that had nothing to do with work or legacy or saving the world. He told her about his childhood, his mother's long shifts at a clinic that barely paid rent, his fear of becoming someone who forgot where he came from. She told him about the night she lost a little girl in the trauma room and how it still woke her up some mornings. He didn't try to fix it. He just listened. And that was everything. Later, when they stood in the rain outside, because of course, it rained, he offered her his jacket. She shook her head and stepped a little closer. You still think this makes sense? She asked, tilting her face up toward him. No, he said, brushing a wet strand of hair from her cheek. But I think you make sense. And I'm tired of building things that don't. She didn't kiss him. He didn't push. But the distance between them? It was gone. Weeks passed. The hospital kept evolving. The staff started smiling more. Anna, without realizing it, became part of something bigger than a shift and a paycheck. She started dreaming again, about projects, about community clinics, about making real change. And Alexander was there. Not to take over, but to amplify. He never tried to save her. He just stood beside her while she saved others, and herself. Because sometimes, the most life-changing moments come not with fanfare, but with a quiet offer in the rain, and a heart that says, I see you. And for Anna, it all started with a flat tire, and a door left open. The end.